Thank you. Hi, everybody. There was one extremely powerful opponent of the Climate Emergency Measures Bill, and that was the oil and gas industry. They told our government there was no way this bill could pass. Except our government had a problem. They had a problem because of the student strikers and the protesters demanding that this bill pass. That put a huge focus on it. And so they had to find a really scrubby, undemocratic, and unconstitutional way to kill it. And that was the money message. The Climate Emergency Measures Bill is the minimum, the very minimum scientists tell us is required for the survival of our society, of our civilizations, for our children and for our grandchildren. The willful complicity of our government by siding with the oil and gas industry has shattered any sort of meaningful democracy and cast aside the common interest in favor of short-term gain and private profits. Not only that, it's betrayed the lives of our youngest, most vulnerable citizens in this country. The 11,000 students who marched right here back in March for climate justice, for climate transition, for zero carbon emissions. They have been betrayed by what our government has done. And when your government fails to provide any assurance of adequate protection to its citizens, you have an obligation to rebel against that. You have a sacred obligation to rebel. It is our duty, and that is what we are doing. Yesterday, Extinction Rebels acted in open rebellion against our government. At the Forestry Industries Conference at the Botanic Gardens, rebels disrupted Minister for Climate Inaction, Richard Bruson's talk, with speeches calling on him to take real climate action. Not tell us all to buy 1 million electric vehicles, but take real climate action to get emissions to net zero by 2030. Outside, rebels held a symbolic protest dressed as trees, calling for wildlife and reforestation to benefit local communities, local farmers and local wildlife, rather than big foreign investors. And in the afternoon, rebels glued themselves to the Department of Climate Inaction to protest the government killing of the Climate Emergency Measures Bill. These open acts of rebellion against our government are only the beginning. For way too long, politicians and the people in power have gotten away with not doing anything to fight the climate crisis and the other important crises in our society. But we will make sure they get away with it no longer. We will not let them subvert our democracy, which we fought for, by killing bills that our legislature have passed with money messages, so a small number of people can continue to make enormous amounts of money, while the suffering of the many pays for the luxuries of the few. We will do everything we can to keep the climate emergency bills alive, to keep fossil fuels in the ground, for a just transition. We will rebel, we will fight it in court, we will go on strike, we will do everything we can. We will take people power and force the government to act in our interest. And we call upon every principled person to join us and to rebel all together. And I hope each and one of you join us. Join Extinction Rebellion, join your groups, join our community. Take action now, keep the climate emergency bill alive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's a perfect transition into our next speaker, Deputy Breed Smith, who's going to be talking about the Climate Emergency Measures Bill.
Well, after that, the best thing to say is up the rebels! The more we fight back, the better! And up all the rebels! Because having come out of that place today, and every day you're in there, it's extraordinarily frustrating to try and represent the sentiment of ordinary decent people out there who care about the planet children, who care about our biodiversity, and to face a brick wall of ignorance and wealth and corruption. I had a look back at Fine Gael's election promises in 2011, and they said they would do something different. They would deliver political transparency, they would end political corruption, and we were entering an era of a new type of politics. How often have you heard that from that government, the new politics? Well, believe me, it's the same old politics dressed up in a blue shirt. That's the only difference between them and the others. And the problem is, when we try to get it out there about money messaging, protocols, standing orders, an awful lot of ordinary people in this country will just yawn and move on because it is boring. That sort of bureaucratic machination is boring and it's draining, and it's not meant for the ordinary Joe Soap to understand. But to put it in a few sentences, what actually is happening here in the case of the climate emergency bill is that the shares of Providence soared today. The bank account of Providence had $10 million lodged in it today because last Friday this government didn't kill, they blocked the climate emergency bill. I'm going to stop using the word kill, and I'm going to stop using it in all contexts, because we're out as rebels to fight them and to get that bit through the processes of the Dáil, where the vast majority of deputies, not once but twice, voted for it.